All right, while I'm waiting for that skin to dry and it's setting up beautifully, I am going to level out my frets and start working on the fit up to the pot. Now, the only reason I'm doing the fit up or the frets right now is that I'm actually having to move. I don't know if I want to show this or not, but figured might as well. I'm having to move the neck down a little. And so I'm having to actually fill the hole where the post goes and re-drill it slightly differently. The main reason I did is that I left room for a scoop, and in doing so, I left it proud. And when it came down to it, I just think the neck's gonna be a little too high, and so the bridge is gonna be a little too high, which I don't want. So I'm gonna take it down just by like 1/8 of an inch. And it seems like a lot of work for that, and it is. So anyways, I haven't leveled this out yet, so I thought while the glue is curing on this plug that's in here, and before I re-drill the hole, I would go ahead and level these. Gives me something to do right in the moment. So nothing too crazy here. Just a file and a float, if I can get it out. And I have a few different tools that I use for this. The first is a rough file and then a float. And then the last one is this dude that I keep protected over here. It is a leveled piece of aluminum bar that I then sand the final dimension to. This one is great because it can work under the strings while you have the instrument strung. So if you're having any fret problems, you can actually level out that way. But I use it for the basic thing here as well. So let's get started. We'll do some music or whatever, and then all I'm gonna do is level these out. Okay, so now that I see that they are getting hit everywhere, now a lot of people put Sharpie marker on all of them, which I will do in a second, but I'm not going to do that before I tape off the board. But I can see that I've hit the tops and they've flattened out all of them. So now I'm going to tape off all of my fingerboard to protect it, and then re-crown the frets to be round and no longer flat on top. So I will Sharpie marker those and then re-crown them. All right, now that I have this protected, I will take a Sharpie marker because I have a history of drifting and staining a piece of wood and having to really do some work. Ha, just like that. Probably because I talk while I'm working. Anyways, what I'm gonna do now is use a crowning file, which I'll show you. And this crowning file has a profile cut into it for the size frets that I'm doing for this instrument. So it would be a little different if it was for an electric guitar or a bass or whatever. So you have different profiles in this file. So they're curved inside. And so I'm going to use that to re-crown and drop the edges off to where just the peaks are black, just the top lines. Now for a banjo, this is not 100% specific, but I still like to do it. Banjos are a little more flexible in a lot of ways. So I'll be doing this to flatten it, and then I have a very cute tiny little file, if I can get it out here, that has a safety edge so that the lines, what do you want to call them? Man, the checking or whatever, the actual file part is removed from the edges. So as I file around the edge of the fret, I'm not actually damaging the wood. So we'll get to filing for a while. right, so all the frets are crowned and redressed. I've gotten them sanded. All I did off camera here was after I filed everything, sanded, hand sanded, and polished everything. I'm now at 5,000 grit, just doing the last little bit on each one. This is kind of excessive, but I like the way it feels and looks. Most people use like a dressing wheel or a buffing wheel to do all this. I think that stuff is really messy. Not my thing, but loads of people do that. There's lots of ways of doing this, and there's no wrong way. Just whatever's preference to you and how you do things. So, we'll get this wrapped up. Last little buffing on here, and we'll take off the tape. And the frets will be done. And I can cut this post off that I'm plugging here, and then I can get to actually fitting the neck. So check those out. Nice and shiny and sharp. Love them. Okay, let's get some tape off. So that's looking good. Now, one complication that we have in this is, and when I say we, I mean you and me, because I'm just a one-man shop. There's no we here. So the complication that we run into is the following. One, when I made this thing, I think I said in the first video, was it was supposed to be for a demonstration. I wasn't really going to make it into a full instrument, but then decided to. So in doing so, I kind of hosed myself in that normally when I would do a fingerboard, before I do the frets, I would actually do all of my inlay or any kind of fret markers. That way you can level it out and it's all good to go. I didn't do that because I wasn't planning on really doing this for much. So I have to do that. Now also normally I dress all these frets and do this once there's some finish on here. That way I'm not having to do sanding or messing anything up. Once again, we're in a weird spot. I still have to finish all the heel carving. I have to do, there's no more neck tuning. I gotta finish around the 5th peg up here. And I think I'm gonna do some fret markers. So I gotta figure out what those are gonna look like. I don't know if I just wanna do dots or something weird. We'll see. But anyhow, that's what we'll be doing next. We'll be doing some fret markers. I need to actually get back into this carving when I get a second. But I really wanna get this neck fit up. Once I get the neck fit up and moving in the right direction, I feel like that'll be a lot better for me. I don't know why, but it just feels like a very unresolved step. Once that's in there, I feel like I could carve on this a little better maybe, just mentally. So I'll start fitting this up, changing the hole, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this off. And this is kind of dicey, so I'm gonna do it on camera just because I don't have to think about filming. Once I cut this off, I'm gonna move the center point up by 1/8 of an inch and re-drill. So 90% of this plug goes away. So I'll re-drill that hole and that will drop the neck down by like 1/8 of an inch. Then I'll put in my scoop and I'll show that and start shaping all of this stuff. So that's how I rough out the frailing scoop, is just on that belt sander. So I'll take it on a rough grit take it up a step, and then polish it out. So it's all freehand. So let's get rid of all of this gunk, and it'll actually carve in exactly where it should fit on the pot. Quick introduction to one of the tools that I use a ton. This is I'm not sponsored by this person or whatever else is. This is a Cool Tools or Trick Tools, whatever it's called, belt grinder attachment for a bench grinder. And so you can have a belt attachment for this really easy. The belts come on and off real easy. It has like an internal little mechanism you can put them on and off with. Whoops. It has a flat platen, I think 3.5-inch wheel here, a large disc sander if you want to use it here that I don't use, and then you can slack belt it here. But I use this for a lot of different shapes and a lot of different areas of instrument making as well as sculpture and anything else. So if you ever see me using this thing up close, this is what it looks like far away on any standard bench grinder. I used to have a jet one here, and one of my students roasted it. Overused it. The alignment had gotten off on this somehow from what they were doing, and so it's causing friction on the platen, which was dragging the motor, which then just burned it out. So we make sure it's tuned up all the time these days. All right, now forgive the burn. I had an old belt, so I've changed that out. Before I finish this though, I want to look at my post here, and what I've done is I've made a little bolster to glue in as like a floating tenon. So this peg will not just sit in there like this and kind of wiggle around. I'm going to sink this square down into there like a tenon, right? But because of the ceramic body, it actually is kind of an undulated shape. So I have to carve that socket shape in there. So I have it in my vise here, and I'm just going to start carving out till I get my line, that line, down in there. So we'll tap on this for a little while and check it. Okay, so the goal here is I'm going to cut down in deep enough for each of the 4 sides, because I have those measurements there in pencil, in the pencil line right there. And so once I get to those 4 lines, I'll cut the middle out, but that way I can kind of work one dimension at a time, and it should match up. So I'll wrap this up and show you the result. So now you can see I've got this guy sunk in there, so the socket fits in. So now this will never turn or act out of tame. So we'll get this all settled in, and I'll carve the rest of this to match the pot.